Who in the is Chud the Builder? I shit you not, as I'm about to begin filming this video, they are literally cutting grass somewhere right next to me, and I can hear it. I can hear it. It is literally about to be a thunderstorm outside. Gale force winds, but we've got to get that grass cut. Sort of makes me want to go set fire to the neighbor's yard. Burn all that shit down. That way you never have to cut the grass. Welcome to another installment of Joe Ross. Today I'm going to be attempting to draw quite a popular individual, and for all the wrong reasons, a guy by the name of Chud the Builder. Somebody who proclaims himself to having some internet stardom and fame, and who's become quite popular as of late, and for all the wrong reasons. Folks, I never in my life imagined that I would see a white guy live streaming, walking up to random black people, trying to antagonize them by using the N-word with the hard R, and also referring to them as such. Now, if you're anything like me and thinking of a situation like this in your mind and not being familiar with any of the clips that are circulating on the internet of such a thing, and possibly thinking to yourself, how could a situation like this play out where violence was not bestowed upon this individual? Well, the answer to that question is because he runs around with a pistol on his waist, and he's certainly not scared to show people that he carries. And as he likes to refer to it, he will defend his life with deadly force. I became fascinated with this individual as of late because he's been plastered all over the internet, and, well, I downloaded Pump.Fun, the only place he was able to live stream, given he was just recently banned from Kick. And while watching his last live stream that took place on Saturday, where over 1,600 people were tuned in to this backpage cockamamie website that nobody had ever heard of, I felt like I, probably like most of the other people watching, we're only doing so, waiting for this train wreck to play out fully. But as fate would have it, he must have had some sort of a lucky rabbit's foot up his ass, because on Saturday night, he would end up being arrested, which potentially may have been the best thing that could have happened to this guy that night, because shit certainly seemed to be rolling downhill fast for this individual. Dalton Etherly, also known as Chud the Builder, live streamed himself having a fancy dinner in a fancy steakhouse, and running up almost a $400 bill. The restaurant would become aware of the fact that he was live streaming, possibly from spam calls and trolls calling, saying, hey, do you realize the piece of shit you've got eating in your establishment? Would go up to Dalton Etherly and ask that he stop live streaming. Not that he be removed from the restaurant. Not yet, at least. When Chud the Builder refused to stop live streaming, the restaurant asked him to leave, to which he obliged, but also did so without paying his tab. And again, nearly damn near $400. Chud the Builder walked out on a $400 bill, and a short time later he would be apprehended by the police and arrested for, amongst other things, theft of services, resisting arrest, and disorderly conduct. Now, what's interesting is, since this incident took place, Chud the Builder has made bond, but he hasn't done any live streams since then. Now, he says that while he was incarcerated, the authorities and also the FBI interviewed him, asking what sort of organization he belonged to, where he would, and I quote, say, I don't belong to any organization. I'm just a guy with a camera. Now, he says that they confiscated his cell phone, and that's probably the reason he's trying to use as an excuse as to why he hasn't been live as of late. But I think it's a little deeper than that. I think possibly they confiscated that firearm. And if they did so, well, this guy certainly doesn't have the protection that he once had, making him feel like a big bad bully out there, trying to use words that a Caucasian man should not be using, especially when talking about another race. So I figured here today on Joe Ross, we should go ahead and mosey over to the canvas and give this guy's mugshot a gander and see what kind of magic we can make happen. So what do you say? Let's try to do the whole world a solid here and poke a little fun at a guy who prides himself on white pride and also poking fun at other people just because of the color of their skin. That's right. I don't see anything right with that in 2026. And, well, you want to talk about getting canceled, and I think a big part of his shtick was going against cancel culture, which I don't think you've got to win with. Not these days, at least. All right, so I've positioned my over-the-shoulder camera in a different angle here, and hopefully it's going to allow you to follow along with me as we attempt to get this mugshot going. So the first thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and block out the head, and What a chiseled jawline this guy has. Let's make sure that we emphasize that. Given that I've served quite a bit of time myself, one thing that I certainly take note of is don't let a face fool you. He might look like he's a big, bad, tough guy, but I think underneath that cowboy Stetson hat that was also just recently stolen from him, I think there's a big old softy. That's right. And though in this mugshot he is trying to look a little stern and callous and a bit like a tough guy, I think what we're seeing here is probably a guy who's absolutely shitting his pants in this moment. And I want to try to capture that. You know, I thought about giving him some cornrows, considering the fact that if he does have to serve time, well, he might definitely be turning over a new leaf, wouldn't you say? Or probably turning something else over, but, well, who's to know? Let's get these eyes in here. And actually, I got a little ahead of myself here. We'll stop right there and work on the nose real quick. Just a pointy little Caucasian nose. Nothing too grimace or menacing about this, even though we are trying to look like a tough guy in this picture. I ought to give him a black person nose in this picture. I don't think I could do him a bigger disrespect than making him look a bit like a black guy, considering he seems to hate blacks so much for whatever reason. And as a matter of fact, I think now is a good time to start talking a little bit about the history of this individual and where he came from to the best of my knowledge. I find it quite interesting to learn the backstory of how a person gets their start. Chud the Builder, from what I've read, and I could be wrong about this, and if I am, please correct me. I'm not too proud to admit when I make a happy little accident. No mistakes. Just happy little accidents. Which, unfortunately, Mr. Bob Ross, if he were alive today, would probably turn over in his grave, being made to know about a guy like this out here, carrying on in such a way. But allegedly, Mr. Chud the Builder had some sort of a construction endeavor going for himself, and, well, he made some comments on the internet that would get him canceled and would also shit-can his business with allegedly a bunch of bad reviews and things of that nature. And I don't know that to be the truth or not, but that's where he says Chud the Builder was created from, because he was using the N-word on the internet, and he got canceled for it. And allegedly so too did his business. Which, personally, kind of sounds like it goes hand in hand together. So because of that, he created this alter ego character, Chud the Builder. He was going to save the white race and make little white children know that they could go out here and use a word, just any old word, as I guess he thought that it was. And unfortunately for him, the word he brought with him was real, and the line he crossed was illegal. God, I love using that blow reference any chance that I can. All right, we got that eyebrow arched up just a little bit, and now let's go ahead and try to get these eyeballs in here. Now, I don't want this to get misconstrued with fan art, because I am certainly not a fan of this guy in any way, shape, or form, and I think that he's despicable scum of the earth, and, well, if I can do a solid here, I'm gonna try to do the best that I can making fun of this guy. Now, I haven't given a lot of thought to the lower extremities of this individual and what we're going to try to focus on with that. But we've got a little bit of time before we get to that. Let's go ahead and put a little frown on this guy, because even with that tough guy appearance you're trying to carry on, I know you're scared to frickin' death. Find yourself incarcerated, where I got to imagine there's plenty of black guys who would love to get their hands on you if they put you in Gen Pop. But I got to imagine that ride to jail, you probably were letting the authorities know quite well that, well, you can't go to Gen Pop. No, sirree, Bob, not this guy. There we go. Let's go ahead and put that toupee of a mustache you got going on right there in there. There it is right there. Get that little chin going right there. And you know what I think I'm going to do? I think I'm going to bring that jawline up just a little bit to right there. I don't want you to have too strong of a jaw. Because even guys that look like they've got the most chiseled jaws can get those shit shattered inside of a housing unit somewhere. There we go. Old menacing look. Trying to look like you're not scared, but I've been there before. Well, actually, I've never been in a situation quite like this. But I know that getting incarcerated can be somewhat of a scary thing, and, well, I can't even imagine what it would be to get incarcerated as probably the most popular racist on the internet in 2026. I don't know one that's more popular, as a matter of fact. All right, there we go. Think about putting a little mascara on this guy. Now I have seen some images floating around the internet of this guy in a fairy attire. Not really sure where that comes from or what the story behind that is, but, well, I'd certainly like to know. Should I put a wig on him? You know, the crazy damn thing about it is, and I just got to say this mustache right here, I have always thought was fake. All right, let's go ahead and put that neck on him right there, just like so. And then we're gonna put that shirt on right there, and, well, there we go, right there. All right, now, one thing that I want to emphasize down here on the lower extremities is them pockets, and, well, I want to showcase them pockets turned inside out. All right, I think I've got a pretty decent idea of where I'd like to take this, so what do you say we go ahead and begin to ink this in, hopefully really bring this picture out. Let's go ahead and start with the nose right here. Just a little glimmer of a nose. Such wonderful eyelids. I think they're gonna look really good with some mascara on him once he gets into Gen Pop, when he probably has to serve 6 months. All of the charges he has are misdemeanors, so I don't think he would end up with too much time, but, well, I don't think that he ends up with no time from this situation. I think they're going to make a nice little example out of this guy. I certainly do. It's got to be a crazy situation to be running around in a city, especially like Nashville, where you've been banned from almost every establishment there is there, and, well, you've basically outstayed your welcome. Go ahead and put that little tiny lip in right there. You know, when it comes to this mustache, I don't know if I mentioned it as much as I wanted to, that I almost thought that this thing was fake. But it's probably a real mustache, and, well, seems to be one of the things that he prides himself most on. I gotta imagine when he's serving time, he's probably gonna have a whole lot of Vaseline all over his mustache. Yeah, buddy. Just a wild situation to think about. Wild to think that a guy makes his entire internet career based on being somebody that's, well, just quite a bit hated. I wouldn't want to carry on like that, and it just doesn't seem like a very fun thing to do, in my personal opinion, but everybody's got their thing, I guess. And for a little slice of the internet fame stardom, what wouldn't a guy do? Put his entire family in danger, carrying on some racist rhetoric bullshit like this guy has. Now, interesting to note about this guy, he claims that, well, he's trying to provide for his family after his business was destroyed because he was using words that he shouldn't use, and he got canceled for that. But it doesn't seem very much like he's providing for his family when he's eating $400 dinners at steakhouses that he can't afford, and I think walking out on that bill was always a part of the plan. I truly do. Okay, that mustache goes quite a bit right up into there. Let's make sure that we don't lose that. Oh, Chud the Builder. What are you going to be like in jail? Well, I got to imagine that if you end up having to serve some time, it's not going to be a pretty situation for you, buddy. And as a matter of fact, I can't think of a guy who would have a bigger target on his back than somebody who's been running around carrying on the way this guy has. You know, in jail, long hair is actually quite appreciated in some regards. From behind, it kind of all looks the same, if you get my drift. So you're probably wondering what I've done with these lower extremities right here, and I'd like to let you know that, well, I wanted to make this guy look as bummy and broke down as I could because, well, I truly feel like it's over for this individual at this point. So what I tried to showcase in his arms right here with this wrinkled and untucked shirt is him holding some laundry folded up. Because when he's locked up, he's probably going to have some chores he's got to do for some guys. A couple of favors. And this is at the very least. Let's go ahead and put those pants on right there. And yep. I'd also like to showcase his pockets turned inside out right here. There we go, right there, just to showcase the fact that, well, financially, it's probably over for him. Maybe we can even put like a little fly buzzing around. There we go. A couple of flies or whatever it may be. I don't think that that's half bad right there. How about a little teardrop tattoo as well? Just to showcase the sorrow this guy's about to be feeling if he does have to serve any time at all. Guess we're going to use the whitest white that we can find for this guy. Just really go ahead and get that skin tone in there. Maybe we should put a little Skittle mascara or blush on this guy because, well, I got to imagine that if he does have to serve any time at all, the amount of extracurricular activities this guy may be subjected to could be quite substantial, don't you think? Yeah, they're going to have a field day with old Chud when they get him into Gen Pop, and you got to know that the jail's going to put him right there, too. Oh, you said you needed to go to PC? Oh, we didn't get that memo. Sorry about that, buddy. Certainly would be big news if anything like that were to happen, because I got to imagine what would entail. Certainly might be kind of bad for this fella. And I would never want to wish violence upon anybody, but, well, you kind of do it to yourself, don't you? And sort of like the saying goes, if you play with the bull, you're going to get the horns. I think this could be a perfect case for a situation like that. I would imagine that this could be a chance for this individual to repent and to change the error of his ways. Who knows, maybe listen to a rap song. Embrace the culture a little bit. Do it for the culture, as I've oftentimes heard it said. Yeah, buddy. It's gotta suck to be the most hated guy in America right now. And that's who you are. And I think that you probably imagined while you were carrying on in such a way that, well, it would never get as out of control as it is right now. But when you throw gasoline on the fire, sometimes you can create a frickin' bonfire. And I like to believe that's exactly what this guy did. Maybe he was trying to do that. Who knows what his intentions were other than to gain some fame and notoriety for himself and to provide for his child, as he says that he was just ultimately trying to do after his business was sabotaged by black individuals trying to cancel him for using a word that was not okay to use as a white guy. But, well, I know there'll be people who see this video, maybe even members of his own congregation, who say, it's just a word. And I'll take it from this guy, it most certainly is a lot more than that. Because though the reason he found himself in trouble didn't even really stem from using that word, ultimately, I truly feel like that were the angels looking out for this guy. Because had he not gotten arrested when he did, Well, he may very well not even be here with us at this point. I think it was any old chopper, another rapper from the Tennessee area, who even put a hit on this guy, as a matter of fact, and begged for him to come to the Memphis area, where, well, that most certainly was not going to happen. But given the fact that this guy has been blackcarded and blackballed, and such an ironic choice of words, no pun intended, from the entire Nashville area, it seems. Not even in Nashville are they going for this type of shit. I wonder where this guy ends up next if he does decide to carry on with this stupid line of thinking like, hey, I've got a great idea to go viral. You know, not everything's worth going viral over. And sometimes selling your soul to the devil definitely isn't the right idea. But then again, maybe for some it is. Maybe for some there's just not enough that you could do to try to be popular. What wouldn't you do? Well, I gotta tell you, I've had a lot of crazy ideas in my time, but I don't think I'd ever cross a line that this guy was crossing. I want to put a little bit of darkness around those eyes to either encompass sorrow or mascara, either one. You be the judge. Continue shading on this guy. Not really trying to make him look too good. As a matter of fact, I'm going to have to put some pink in those cheeks. Those rosy little cheeks of his. Showcase those bags under the eyes, because you know this guy was stressed. And those cortisol levels were probably pretty high during this whole encounter. Yes, indeed. I wonder why this guy hasn't been live since Saturday night, and I know he's made the excuse saying that they took his phone, but I honestly think it's because they probably took that pistol. And without that pistol, you're not so big and tough, are you? No, sirree, Bob. I wondered to myself if he were to serve time on misdemeanor time, he would only have to do probably 6 months at best. But even with 6 months, when you've got a target on your back, that's still plenty of time for them to get at you. And I just wonder if he would be embraced by any sort of gangs on the inside. Would the Aryans pick him up? Or would he be too hot? He's damaged goods. He's no good, as a matter of fact. And he's not worth the trouble. To think of throwing your entire life away just to try to gain a little clout on the internet is unbelievably diabolical to me. And the sadder thing to mention with all of this is, you mentioned that you have a son and you were doing this just to be able to provide for your son, when in all actuality that was an absolute farcity, and you were just doing this for your own personal gain and popularity. You became obsessed with yourself, and it clearly shows. But I think the real victim here, outside of all the black people that you offended and made to feel a certain type of way with your bullshit, is your own damn child, who may end up growing up and resenting and hating you because of this. And, well, if he did, how could you blame him? I don't know that there's any type of rehabilitation or teachable moment here, or any kind of redeeming factor for this guy. Maybe he doesn't even want that. Who's to know? But your child certainly didn't deserve to have a father who was as big of a piece of shit as this guy is. And, well, I do feel bad for that child, because when he is of the age to understand what his father was out here doing, there's a good possibility he might even catch some shit for it, or resents his old man. And, well, I could never imagine that with my own kids. As a father, you should want to be a good example of how to be in the world. And though the world may be a hateful and dark and terrible place most of the time, well, you don't have to contribute to that and add to it now, don't you? And as a matter of fact, you could try to be an example of, well, just trying to, in some way, not add to the problem. I don't think anybody added to the problem more than this guy. Probably went a little overboard adding all the dark to his hair that I did, because his hair really is brown. But I don't care. We'll add a little darkness down here to that beard as well. Maybe even a little black around those eyes. There we go. Well, unfortunately, I think I did go just a little too dark in the hair, and you can see me trying to add this brown in here to bring it back. But unfortunately, that black is just a little too overpowering. And sort of a rationale I've heard mentioned many times throughout life. Once you go black, it's hard to go back. And that may actually be a lesson that old Dalton Etherly may have to learn if he is forced to serve some time. Crazy to think. Let's not forget those rosy little white guy lips right there. Make sure that we really showcase the pink nature of those. There they are, right there. A little pink in the eye right there as well, too. I think I'll go ahead and put him in that orange jumpsuit. I was going to keep him in the attire that he was wearing when he was arrested, but, well, I like to change it up a little bit. So let's go ahead and put that orange on him just in case it is going to be jail in this guy's future when he does go to court for these crimes. Curious to see how all of this plays out for this guy. There we go, right there. You know, I will mention one other thing as I get close to wrapping this image up right here. He mentions that the feds actually interviewed him, and how crazy would it be if they indict this guy on a hate crime? My God. You want to talk about a guy who's probably shaking in his frickin' boots right now. I don't think there's much scarier than that. Because though jail may not be the worst thing for this guy, even though I think that it will be, if he has to go to prison, holy moly, Camacho. You are going to be screwed. Yes, you are. I'll do one other thing real quick before I wrap this up, and let's just put a little bit of rosiness in those cheeks right there, just to emphasize the wholesome nature of this guy, not my boy. No, sirree, Bob. A little pink in your face. A little wet behind the ears, so to speak. You lock this pretty boy up right here, a face like that is certainly going to spell trouble for you. Yes, it will. Old Chud the frickin' builder. Gotta imagine what the boys on the inside are going to be thinking when they see him walking through that Sally port. You better hope you don't gotta serve no time for these crimes that you committed and got locked up for this past Saturday night. Because if you do, that tough guy shit's going to go right out the window when it's time to get into that cell block. You're going to be doing one of two F's. Fighting. I can guarantee it. Hey, that's all, folks. And until next time, enjoy life and each other. Let's go ahead and shade in that teardrop tattoo as well. That'll do it right there. Yes, indeedy.